A yellow weather warning for the southwest of England tonight. Drier weather in parts for the northwest of England and southern Scotland. Feeling blustery at times, a low of 4 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
Every Monday to Thursday at 6, it's Election Call, where I shut up and you speak to the politicians. Tonight, Tom Brake from the Liberal Democrats. He speaks for the party on exiting the EU. He was Deputy Leader of the House of Commons in the coalition government. What do you want to ask the Lib Dems? Here's the number, 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC. We're live on LBC, of course, and you can watch all of Election Call on the LBC website, lbc.co.uk. You can also watch us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and by opening up a baked potato and staring inside it. Your Election Call to Tom Brake from the Lib Dems, 0345 6060 973. How are you tonight?
I'm great, thank you.
Excellent. Well, let's get straight to the phones. David is in Leicester. Hello, David. What's your question?
Hello. Well, I've tried opening a baked potato, but I can't see anything in there apart from potato.
All right.
Seriously, my question, Tom, I can't hear you very well, is you call yourself the Liberal Democrats, which means you believe in democracy. We had a democratic vote in 2016 where the majority of the people who cast a vote voted to leave the EU. Why is it, as a democratic party, you are not upholding the democratically voted for result from the referendum?
Tom Brake.
Well, thank you, David, and I appreciate your question, and it's a question that's been put to me a number of times during the course of this campaign, as you'd expect, and my answer is that 3.5 years ago, during the referendum campaign, a series of Leave campaigners like Nigel Farage, for instance, and Daniel Hannan from the Conservatives talked about what their vision of Leave was going to be. Nigel Farage at one point during the campaign, for instance, referred to what's so bad with being like Norway, and Daniel Hannan at one point referred to the fact that it wasn't as if we were going to have to leave the single market. So I think the difficulty was that during the course of that campaign, there were many, many different flavours or options that were put forward about what Leave was going to look like. We have now got a defined Leave version. It is Boris Johnson's, and what Boris Johnson's Leave version does is it puts a border in the Irish Sea. So it moves the UK border from the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, and it slaps it in the Irish Sea. Now, I don't recall anyone 3.5 years ago saying that was going to be a consequence of Brexit, and that's why I think it's legitimate to put this back to a vote, see if the people are happy with a proposal that sticks the border in the Irish Sea, and if they are...
That's not your policy, though.
Oh, no, that's the government's policy.
Boris Johnson has quite categorically said there is no border in the Irish Sea. If someone wants to put a border on the Republic of Ireland or in the Irish Sea, the EU can do it. And if the EU put a border in the Republic of Ireland and Ireland, the IRA will get rid of that border very quickly, I'm sure.
Well, I'm afraid Boris Johnson seems to be in disagreement with his own Secretary of State for exiting the European Union about whether there is a border or not in the Irish Sea, because, of course, they've had to accept that there will be a requirement, for instance, for a significant number of goods coming into Northern Ireland to have tariffs levied on them, and for me that amounts to a border. So that was not what was proposed 3.5 years ago, and that's why I think if Boris Johnson becomes the Prime Minister and he continues to push his deal, it is legitimate to put that to the people in a vote, and what this could be is a confirmatory referendum. In other words, you do all the legislation that is required for us to be able to leave the European Union, you then have that vote, and as the last vote is counted, if people have voted to leave, all of the legislation has been passed, and at that point we have left, so there's no risk of coming back again and again and again with another referendum. But if at that point people have said, well, actually, now that we can see what the consequences of Brexit are, we don't actually think it's a very good deal for the UK and we want to remain, then they have the choice to remain.
But your party would rather stop Brexit altogether without a referendum.
Well, we would prefer in this election to go from 20 to over 326 members of parliament, which we would believe we would say would indicate that there was a very strong swing in the country towards our position. We've been very clear about that we want to stop Brexit, but it would only be in those circumstances. And I think that would be a huge swing, unprecedented in parliamentary terms, which would give us that mandate.
It's not too late, though, eh?
Well, it's not too late. It might just happen, but if it doesn't, our policy remains putting this to a referendum.
All right, thank you. James next in Notting Hill. James, you're through.
Hi.
Hi, what's your question for Tom Brake?
Hi. So I wanted to ask Tom, we now live in an era where politicians can lie with impunity and even the journalists are too scared to call them out as liars. We've had Peter Oborne accusing the Beeb of burying a bunch of investigations into everything from, Russia's attempts to interfere into elections, so they're linked to the Conservatives. We just seem to be in an era of we've got the Beeb editing out laughter from clips of Boris Johnson. Is very disturbing. We seem to be in an era now where politicians can basically get away with anything, and there's no real effort to hold them to account. What can we do about it?
Well, that's a really good point. But I think what's actually happening is that there are certain politicians who can get away with lies, and it's almost part of their persona, and it's accepted as such, and it's dismissed. However, I think...
Who are you talking about?
Boris Johnson, of course.
And which lies has he told that haven't been exposed?
Well, I think it's your caller who's suggesting they're not being exposed.
I thought you were agreeing with him.
I was agreeing with the fact that there are certain politicians who can, almost with impunity, even if those lies are revealed, it is almost part of their persona, and it's accepted that that is what that character is going to do. I don't think that applies to many other politicians. I think there are a select group, like Boris Johnson, like Donald Trump, who have almost impunity to say and do these things, and people say, well, that's just Boris or that's just Donald. In terms of how can we change the system, well, I would like to see, and I'm disappointed this hasn't happened in the debates that have taken place so far, I like the idea of having on the bottom of the screen, mid the debates featuring the party leaders, a ticker along the bottom of the screen with independent fact-checking organisations that would be able to immediately rebut some of the more lurid claims that were being made during those debates by all politicians, so they could be held to account immediately. And I think that would be effective at holding them to account.
James, what do you think?
I think that would be a very good start, but I think things aren't really going to change until politicians start getting scared of being tarred with the label of liar, which is just not something that seems to be happening at the moment. The problem with Boris Johnson, you said, which lies? He's one of those lies that he tells so many, it's hard to keep track of. I mean, for the 40 hospitals where there's only 6 being made, all the promises of all this massive spending increases, which basically don't really add up. And fundamentally, it would just be a policy of undoing what his own party's been doing over the past 10 years. We've just got to a stage now where, unless you're paying attention full time and keeping very detailed notes, it's kind of impossible to keep track of every lie he's told.
James, thank you for that. I should say, by the way, that every Friday on this programme, we've done this throughout the campaign, fullfact.org are here. They're an independent fact-checking charity. And if you see or hear something from any politician, any leaflet, any claim you've heard or read, you can email factchecking@lbc.co.uk, and every Friday we will go through those facts. Sometimes the Liberal Democrats, I'm afraid, have been caught a little short.
I'm sure, and I hope we would rectify it immediately. Presumably that's nothing to do with CCHQ, the fact-checking organisation you just referred to.
Passing off as something you're not, you mean?
Indeed.
Because we've heard the claim today, haven't we? The Liberal Democrats have been handing out election leaflets pretending to be local newspapers. Do you deplore that?
I actually brought with me, it's outside, a leaflet or a newspaper that's recently been distributed in a constituency near me, which I won't name, by the Conservatives, which looks remarkably like a local newspaper.
Well, the Conservatives can answer for themselves. The Lib Dems have been accused of doing it in a number of places. Do you deplore it?
The fact is that ever since, it is common practice for Liberal Democrats to distribute a variety of leaflets, focuses, tabloid newspapers, letters,
if you're calling
postcards.
yourself the same name as a local newspaper, if you're calling yourself the Gazette when the local newspaper's the Gazette, that's not good form, is it?
I'm sure that the Gazette, if there was one, anyone in the constituencies where we are distributing a newspaper called the Gazette would jump up and down on
They
us.
have
So
done. And I'm asking you to deplore it. You're complaining about the Conservatives passing themselves off as fact-checkers. I'm suggesting that the Liberal Democrats are passing themselves off as independent journalists. And I'm saying to you, it's wrong.
Well, people can see the number of references to Liberal Democrats in the newspapers, as they do in the focuses, as they do in the direct mail that they receive from us, as they do in the postcards they receive from us. It's just a different way of presenting things, in that a focus leaflet, an A4 leaflet, if they've seen 10 of them, they might bin it. If they see a tabloid newspaper, that may attract people's attention.
And how would we know? I suppose if we pick up a local newspaper and it says the Lib Dems are doing fantastically well and they've got great policies, you know it's from the Lib Dems.
Well, it's likely to be from Lib Dems. It might be from one of the small number of newspapers that support us. But yes, it could be. It could be, if you count the number of photographs of a prominent Liberal Democrat, that might be the thing that gives it all away.
All right, this is Tom Brake with us till 7 o'clock on LBC's Election Call. He's from the Liberal Democrats, 0345 6060 973. And if you're interested in politics, you could do worse than LBC's Election 2019 podcast. Your one-stop shop for our election coverage brings together all the key parts of the campaign. Ian Dale, Sheila Fogarty, Nick Ferrari, James O'Brien, and occasionally me. You'll hear politicians speaking about policies. In the latest episode, which I'm involved in, Jo Swinson shares her views on Prince Andrew, and not one but two Lib Dem candidates don't seem to know the details of the manifestos. That's not something we can accuse Tom Brake of at this early stage in the programme. But anyway. 45 minutes to go. That's the LBC Election 2019 podcast. Get it on the Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts. 6:15, here's an update now from Holly Jones.
Jeremy Corbyn has offered to meet the chief rabbi for talks on tackling anti-Semitism after being accused of not doing enough to address allegations in the Labour Party. A High Court judge has banned any future protests from outside a school in Birmingham after demonstrations against the teaching of LGBT equality. 10 people, including a pregnant woman and 2 children, have been found in the back of a lorry on the A14 in Cambridgeshire. LBC weather, rain and showers for much of the UK, including a yellow weather warning for the southwest of England tonight. Feeling blustery at times, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight, and the anti-clockwise M25 is partly blocked with an accident between Clackett Lane Services and Sevenoaks at 5. It's causing queues. Clockwise, it's also heavy past the scene. We still have one lane closed southbound on the M3 before Bagshot at 3 because the lorry's broken down, and there's been an accident in the roadworks on the southbound M23. It's closing one lane before Gatwick Airport at junction 9. An accident in Thamesmead is closing Harrow Manor Way both ways near Easton Way, and the A127 slow into town from the halfway house to the M25 because of an accident which has been cleared. Finally, on the trains, Great Northern are warning of delays and several cancellations to and from Moorgate this evening caused by a power failure.
This is LBC.
You'll save 10p a litre on fuel when you spend £60 at Tesco. We wouldn't want you running on empty. Tesco. Every little helps. Qualifying spend exclusions apply. Ends 1st of December. Full T's and C's apply.
This is LBC.
Use Swell Heating's online tool to find the perfect boiler in under 5 minutes. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Make their Christmas wishes come true. Whether they want to jet off on Barbie's dream plane, run with the storm in Fortnite, or glide along on My Lovely Llama. At littlewoods.com, you'll find all the toys they love, all with inclusive delivery and free returns. Own Christmas. Shop now at littlewoods.com.
Raise your game for less with the Mercedes-Benz Vito. Now available with 3 trims, pure, progressive and premium. So it's easier than ever to get the features and functionality your business needs. And with unmissable deals across the range, it's more affordable than you might think. But hurry, all offers end January 31st, 2020. The impressive Mercedes-Benz Vito, keeping businesses moving. Search Mercedes-Benz Vito to find a deal near you.
Here's the thing. How can BT's superfast fibre and our powerful smart hub with a Which Best Buy be so affordable? Simple. When we do Black Friday, we do it properly. $24.99 a month for 24 months with a $19.99 setup fee. It's our lowest ever fibre price. Less than you'd expect for broadband this good. Offer ends 7th of December. Search BT Broadband.
CPI increase each March starting 2020. New customers was $29.99 per month over 24 months, $37.99 per month, 25 terms apply.
Some regard me as a national treasure. Well, that's very kind of you, but let me tell you about a hidden national treasure. Cello TVs. Cello are the only British manufacturer of premium quality LED TVs, but without the hefty price tag. 16 to 65 inches, manufactured in the UK, there's a Cello TV for everyone. This Black Friday, get a 65-inch smart 4K TV for under £550. Search cello.tv.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
LBC's Election Call. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC. Call 0345 6060 973. LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
It's Tom Brake from the Liberal Democrats who's here. Here's a text from Miles who says, can you ask your guest how many seats would represent a successful election and how many would be deemed a failure? We'll take two numbers from you.
More than now would be a success, less would be a failure.
Straightforward answer. Thank you, Miles. Blogger Cab tweets to say the Liberal Democrats could scrap Brexit on a majority win of just 35%. Considering the referendum had a Leave mandate of 52, how do the Lib Dems justify this position?
Well, in circumstances where we went from 20 MPs to over 326, I'm willing to bet that our score would be better than 35%.
I wonder if that's a full answer to the question, but I suppose maybe it is.
And of course, we have a parliamentary system which, as a party, we have tried to change with proportional representation to ensure that a majority view prevails. We don't have one at present, but I'm confident that a swing on that scale wouldn't just leave us remarkably with 35%. I suspect our score would be much higher than that.
All right, you can tweet at LBC, text 84850, or do what Daniel's done and call 0345 6060 973. Daniel, you're through to Tom Brake. What's your question?
Hi, I would like to... Hi, good evening. I'd like to know your opinion. Myself and many of my friends and family, we're traditionally very liberal and centrists, and we're Remainers, but we cannot actually vote for your party because we do see a vote for you as a vote for Corbyn, that you will, the natural coalition, which you would have to form a coalition, and unfortunately we don't have proportional representation, which means a vote for you would be a vote for an extremist and not for mainstream centrist politics, because you would go in with Jeremy Corbyn.
So to be clear, Daniel, your question is not so much about splitting the vote, as it were, but it's about what the Lib Dems might do after the election.
Well, I would like to know his opinion, how he thinks that he's losing so many centrist votes, because it's not just about Brexit, unfortunately. This isn't another referendum. There are many, many other issues, and we're in a situation where Remainers, who are Liberals and centrists, we're going to have to vote Tory to keep Labour out.
Okay.
First of all, I'm sure, Daniel, you won't have forgotten that the last time there was a coalition in which the Liberal Democrats featured, it was actually with the Conservatives. In relation to Jeremy Corbyn, I'm not sure what more Joe Swinson, I and other leading Lib Dem spokespeople can do other than continue to repeat that under no circumstances whatsoever are we going to be in a coalition with Jeremy Corbyn.
That's
or
not
for
the
that
same
matter,
as doing
Boris
deals.
Johnson. What it means is that if, for instance, in a scenario where any government, for instance, comes forward with a legislative programme that might include, for instance, a referendum, for the sake of argument, Boris Johnson comes forward with a proposal for a referendum because he sees that as his way out, then we have always, as a party, been willing to support a succession of governments if they are bringing forward individual policies that we support. We've always done that. This would be no different.
I take that you would go in with Labour if they supported another referendum.
Well, no. What I'm saying is if Labour or the Conservatives bring forward, as a minority government, for the sake of argument, a proposal, for instance, that appeals to us in relation to health, or a proposal that appeals to us in relation to Brexit, or appeals to us in relation to transport, as a party, we have consistently been willing to support proposals put forward by other parties in government if we support them. That's a logical, in my view, that's a logical and sensible position to adopt. That is not going into coalition with Jeremy Corbyn, and that is certainly not going into coalition with Boris Johnson, neither of whom are fit to be our Prime Minister.
What do you think of the answer, Daniel?
Well, I'm very, very worried. I'm very happy. The Liberal Democrats, they had a very big problem with racism and anti-Semitism. They put their house in order with Jenny Tong and David Ward, and they did good work. But I'm a bit shocked about the silence about Jeremy Corbyn, his support of the bombers in the attack in Finchley on a Jewish youth club in 1994. I'd like to see more condemnation of extremist politics, especially particularly from a Liberal Party.
All right, Daniel, thank you. Glenn next in Doncaster. Hi, Glenn.
Hi there. Thanks very much for having me on. I'm an IT contractor, like millions of others. I'm quite concerned about the changes coming in April next year regarding off-payroll and IR35. Tom, your colleague Ed Davey has recently come out to say that he would want to repeal or review IR35 and not implement those changes in April next year. Is this something that's Lib Dem policy, and is it something you would support if it was put before Parliament?
Absolutely, and it is long-standing Liberal Democrat policy. We have flagged up concerns about IR35, certainly for the last 3 to 4 years, as far as I can recall. So, yes, he was confirming what our party policy is.
Glenn, thank you. Mike is next in Leamington. Mike, you're through to Tom Brake.
Hi, how you doing? My question, Tom, is regarding HS2. Your party's come out in the manifesto fully behind it, but you've raised some serious questions in the House regarding their procedure and finances. How does that sit one way and the other?
Well, the reason we support HS2 is partly, for instance, about trying to ensure that the wealth in the southeast, the jobs in the southeast and in London are, people that can be spread throughout the country. And it's clear, certainly in other countries, when you have a decent high-speed network, that has that effect. The other reason we support it is because, frankly, at the moment, a significant percentage of our rail network, certainly that spine, south-north spine, is based on infrastructure that is really, in practice, is Victorian. And we cannot simply patch and mend. We can't upgrade that infrastructure in a way that you can then provide the sort of high-speed, reliable services that many other European countries, and indeed countries beyond Europe, rely on. And that's why we think it is a necessary investment. That doesn't mean to say that they should be given carte blanche to write themselves bigger and bigger checks, because clearly financial controls do need to be placed on the project. But I think fundamentally, without that sort of boost to our infrastructure, we're not going to be competitive.
Mike?
Yeah, as I said, you are supporting fully in your manifesto, and you've just mentioned that the carte blanche on cost, but you voted, along with a lot of others, in June on 56 billion. 6 days later, they put 30 billion on it. And I think you raised questions about that. So where do you stand on that?
Well, clearly we would want them to operate within within a reasonable financial envelope. Now, it may be that just as happened with the Olympics project, that started with a rather low budget and ended up with a bigger budget, but was then kept within that budget.
But if the project's 3/4 finished and suddenly the budget balloons again, you don't stop it, do you?
Well, you may be able to phase it. Typically, I guess, with these sorts of projects, what you end up doing is phase it over a longer period of time, so slow down, which may happen perhaps unintentionally if the project is running into difficulties, but perhaps push it over a longer time frame to still keep the cost down. So that may be necessary in this case.
Mike, last word to you on this.
But as I said, you voted on 56 billion, and 6 days later, the price went up to 88 billion.
All right, Mike, thank you. Miro is next in Hertfordshire. Hi, Miro.
Oh, hi there. Good evening, gentlemen. So my question would be that, as far as I can understand, Lib Dem do believe in the legalization of cannabis. Now, I know that for medicinal purposes here, so far, it's mainly used for epilepsy and or MS. Now, in the States, they use it very much for pain and chronic anxiety and so on. I myself suffer with extreme anxiety to the point where I will fall asleep in the street if I have extreme anxiety. I'm just trying to understand which context, the legalization of cannabis would be. Okay. Would it be mainly medicinal or in general?
Well, let's hear it. Thanks, Miro.
Well, first of all, you've highlighted the question of medicinal cannabis for epilepsy and MS, and I think one of the difficulties that we are finding there is that, yes, theoretically it's available, but in practice people are finding it very hard to get access to it, and people are still having to, certainly for children, for instance, to rely on going abroad and bringing it back illegally. So from a medical point of view, what was on offer hasn't yet really been delivered. From the point of view of sort of more generally legalising cannabis, that is the Liberal Democrat position. We think that the war on cannabis is one that has not succeeded. What it has succeeded in doing, so this is cannabis for personal consumption, what it has succeeded in doing is lining the pockets of criminals and has meant the easy availability of some strands of cannabis that are highly, highly dangerous, psychotic, and that if you look at other countries where they've adopted this, it is possible to bring in standards for the cannabis to ensure that the most toxic strains of skunk, for instance, are not retailed. You can then also link it to a health program for people who are purchasing it, and indeed from the taxes that you're raising can plough that back into preventative programs. So our proposal is not just about medicinal cannabis, but is much wider than that.
Miro, does that help you?
Yes, that does very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate the call. The number to call is 0345 60 60 973. Tom Brake from the Liberal Democrats here until 7 o'clock. You can also text 84850. Here's a news update now, 6:30. Holly Jones.
Jeremy Corbyn's insisting Labour does not tolerate anti-Semitism in any form whatsoever after a warning from the chief rabbi about his response to the issue. Boris Johnson says it shows a failure of leadership, while Liberal Democrat leader Jo Swinson has called it a significant intervention. The Conservatives also say they're starting an inquiry into claims of Islamophobia in their party before the end of the year. 2 people have been arrested after 10 people were found in the back of a lorry on the A14 in Cambridgeshire this afternoon. The group discovered include a pregnant woman and 2 children. New talks will be held tomorrow to prevent strikes through most of December on South Western Railway. The RMT is planning a 27-day walkout in the dispute over the role of guards. The union says it believes there is a deal to be done. LBC weather, rain and showers for much of the UK, including a yellow weather warning for the southwest of England tonight. Feeling blustery at times, a low of 4 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, LBC.
British Jews are, quotes, gripped by the anxiety at the idea of Jeremy Corbyn inside number 10. The chief rabbi, Ephraim Mervis, talks of the poison of anti-Semitism being allowed to take root in Labour. Andy MacDonald is Shadow Secretary of State for Transport.
Well, obviously there's been a very important intervention by the chief rabbi, and I take that with the utmost seriousness. And
your party doesn't seem to take the problems with utmost seriousness, does it?
We do take it with the utmost seriousness.
But
double
Mr.
the number
MacDonald,
of staff and put.
Something's happened to the Labour Party. This was not an issue under Ed Miliband.
Jeremy Corbyn's devoted his entire adult life to fighting racism, to fighting anti-Semitism, and that is why we are speeding up our processes, doubling the resources attending to the cases, and changing our rules to permit automatic exclusions.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you the very best London has to offer? Yes? Then Greyhound Cars, one of South London's oldest and most progressive minicab companies, want to speak to you. Spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. With a very busy day circuit, we have high demand and are now offering great bonuses and mileage rates for the very best drivers. You could pay as low as 10% commission. Start today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Take 1.
Delight with our irresistible pork sausages and mashed potato, all for only £2.50.
Hold on, £2.50? That can't be right.
Our latest Super Saver deal. Co-op, it's what we do. £5.80 if sold individually. Irresistible pork sausages and irresistible mashed potato. See participating stores for details. Offer ends 10th of December. Subject to availability.
Ladies and gentlemen, behold the world's most fantastical, sensational number. 21 million! Tonight's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £21 million!
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Like all good tradespeople, Ford likes an early start too. That's why our Black Friday has already begun. Enjoy amazing savings across our hard-working range of new commercial vehicles. Save between £2,500 and £9,650 off the recommended retail price. Why wait until the 29th of November, when you can have that Black Friday feeling today? Plus, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Search Ford Black Friday. Ford, backbone of Britain.
Exclusions apply. Combined promotions available till 30th of November 2019 at participating dealers. For Ford Acquire, finance subject to status and deposit restrictions apply. Free post Ford credit.
Hello, I'm Jo Brand. When I see people homeless over Christmas, I find it really upsetting. Whether they're sleeping in doorways, on buses or in hostels, it just shouldn't be happening. But it doesn't have to be like this. This Christmas, crisis centres across Britain are providing warmth and safety, plus long-term support to find people a job and a home. Please reserve a place for someone at Crisis this Christmas for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk now. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you have progressive memory loss.
When you hear these words, the outlook is bleak, but we're working to change that. We're Recognition Health, the brain and mind experts, and we're running clinical studies in London and Guildford. If you volunteer, you'll receive free access to a new generation medication as well as comprehensive medical care. With your help, we can change the future of MCI, as in mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease.
You have progressive memory loss, but here's what we can do.
To find out more about Recognition Health and taking part, go to brainandmindexperts.com.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair. Tweet at LBC.
Tom Brake from the Liberal Democrats, who speaks for his party on exiting the European Union. Jerry has called in. Welcome, Jerry. What's your question for Tom Brake?
Oh, good evening, Eddie. And good evening, Tom. Tom, I'd like to ask, were Brexit to be cancelled and we return to the EU, how efficient or what is the likelihood of us having a meaningful veto should we feel the necessity to enact it?
Okay, well, thank you for your question, Jerry. The EU have made it very clear that as long as we are still in the European Union, the terms of our membership are completely unchanged. So all of the opt-outs that we've got, all of the rebate that we've got, nothing of that changes should we decide to stay in. However, I think your question may be sort of trying to dig a bit deeper in terms of how will the UK be perceived having not left. And I think that is a different question. Clearly, there are people within the European Union who are, frankly, a little bit sick and tired of Brexit and want to focus on the other issues that the EU needs to deal with. So whether it's things like youth unemployment or immigration issues or tackling automation, the things that they want to get focused on, which they're not really able to do. But we do have that guarantee that if we want to stay in, it would be on the same terms, and overwhelmingly, most European countries would be very happy because they have appreciated the role that the UK has played on a whole host of issues, from financial deregulation through to defence.
But my concern was, Tom, that my concern is very much that David Cameron went back to try and do a deal of sort or make arrangements with them and had no success whatsoever. There was no compromise. And were we to remain, how would we fare were they to suggest again that we buy into the euro and lose the pound? Would we be able to challenge that effectively? Have we got enough influence to carve our own way within the EU without all this political surrender?
Absolutely, because there are countries that have joined the European Union that did not have to adopt the euro. So there's no suggestion that the UK, if we stay in, and I would be the first. I can assure you, to be arguing against the UK joining the euro. I don't see any foreseeable future in which we would want to do that. And certainly I'm confident my Liberal Democrat colleagues would argue against and fight against the imposition of that if anyone tried to attempt it. But I don't think there's any evidence to suggest they'd want to do that. There are, as I said, a number of countries that are not part of the euro, that are part of the European Union now.
Thank you, Jerry, for the question. We have a text from Sue in Wales. I want to vote Lib Dem, but you've stood down your candidate in favour of Plaid Cymru in my area. And as I do not believe in Welsh nationalism, I'm unable to vote for anyone.
Well, I'm sorry, Sue. I do understand where you're coming from. We made a decision as a party to enter into a limited number of arrangements with Plaid and also with the Green Party in seats where because they are two Remain parties, where we thought that standing down for them would help them, or they doing the same for us would help us. On the question of Brexit, I accept that means that some candidates or some voters will not then have the choice of a Liberal Democrat, but I can assure you, Sue, that we will continue to fight as hard as we can to maintain the United Kingdom. I think that is one of the consequences of Brexit that really perhaps no one anticipated, that there is a real risk that Brexit is going to lead to the breakup of the United Kingdom.
What should Sue do, though? Should she vote for somebody else?
Well, I'm afraid she'll have to look at the options, but she may have to abstain. She's a committed Liberal Democrat. If for her Remain is a priority, then I hope she might vote for the Plaid candidate. And of course, I would argue that the UK remaining in the European Union is probably one of the best ways of guaranteeing that the United Kingdom will stay together. Leaving the European Union is going to precipitate, I'm confident, the departure of Scotland. Boris Johnson's proposal, I think, is going to precipitate potentially the reunification of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. So we could soon be in a position where the United Kingdom was left with England and Wales, and I'm not sure how much longer Wales would want to stay part of that small core group of two nations.
We were talking earlier about newspapers and Lib Dem leaflets and papers. Ash in Somerset text to say, I've recently received one of those Lib Dem newspapers and it did indeed fool me for a bit. They sent out their branded focus paper at the same time as the tabloid one to quite obviously fool the reader. No condemnation from Mr. Brake. Blatant hypocrisy. One rule for one for another.
Well, I would have thought that the mere fact that the two were delivered together might have been an indication that it was coming from the Liberal Democrats.
Or it was trying to say, this is Focus, this is the Lib Dem one, and trying to give the impression that the paper was independent.
Well, as I said earlier when this was raised, in a number of Liberal Democrat seats, probably for the last 30 years, it has been common 2-3 times a year to distribute as an alternative to the A4 focuses that we distribute, a tabloid newspaper featuring Liberal Democrat candidates, featuring Liberal Democrat councillors, featuring Liberal Democrat policy. I think it's pretty obvious that is what it is about, and clearly it didn't fool your listener.
Eventually. Fooled for a bit, he said.
Well, he realised what it was. It was a Liberal Democrat publication, and
should be clear though, shouldn't it? Shouldn't have to realise.
Well, I could wave in front of you if I get it from my bag the Conservative version. The fact is that all of the political parties
we want to.
No, we want to.
You were talking about lying from Boris Johnson earlier. This is deceit, isn't it?
No, it's not deceit. I mean, it talks about Liberal Democrats. It has, if you look at the printed and published, that says where it came from.
But you're suggesting that everyone's doing it, so it's okay.
No, I'm suggesting we are not alone in doing this.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
All of the political parties want to try to get across a message which, if it is always put across in exactly the same form, switches people off potentially. Doing it in different ways, different media, is an effective way of grabbing people's attention.
All right, let's get Anand now, who is in Harrow in London. Anand, hello.
Hello there. Hi. Good evening to you both. I'm a Lib Dem voter. I've been for the last two elections probably this time, but I had a specific question about India. So how important? My question is how important a global partner is India to the Liberal Democrats? And if it is important, then what is the official Lib Dem position on a matter that is quite important to those of Indian heritage in the UK, which is the Kashmir issue, and why has there been little communication on that from Lib Dem MPs?
Well, good point, Anand. And India clearly is a very important partner for the United Kingdom, and will be even more so, I guess, if we do leave the European Union, because the need to try to secure deals with other countries, including India. What we do know just on that score is that a deal with India, Mr. Modi has made it clear that one of the requirements of any such deal would be for India to have more Indian citizens coming to the UK to work, and so that's perhaps one of the unexpected consequences of trade deals. In relation to Kashmir, it is a highly problematic, sensitive issue. I know that there was a delegation of Liberal Democrats who went out there a couple of weeks ago to try and see what was happening. They were not really able to do that, and clearly it's in a region where not only India, Pakistan, and also the Chinese are active. So it's one which, from a diplomatic point of view, is one that I'm afraid the Liberal Democrats and probably the other parties approach with a degree of caution.
Anand, what do you think of the answer?
Yes, it's good to hear a stance that effectively leaves it to the two countries in question, India and Pakistan, to resolve. It is a bilateral issue, and that's and I guess that the take to that end is appreciated.
Anand, thank you. Do you have a question for Tom Brake? Here's the number, 0345 6060 973. He's here on LBC's Election Call until 7 o'clock. Then it's Ian Dale. Now the news. Here's Holly Jones.
Jeremy Corbyn insists anti-Semitism is vile and there's no place for it in the Labour Party after being accused of being unfit to be Prime Minister by the UK's chief rabbi. A man's pleaded guilty to 3 counts of attempted murder and a terrorism offence after a knife attack at Manchester Victoria Railway Station on New Year's Eve. Demonstrations against LGBT inclusive education have been permanently banned outside a school in Birmingham. LBC weather, rain and showers for much of the UK, including a yellow weather warning for the southwest of England tonight. Feeling blustery at times, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight, and the North Circular is shut westbound at the Clockhouse interchange at Palmer's Green following an accident. There are queues already back to the Crooked Billet interchange at Walthamstow, and all surrounding areas are really heavy. The M1's queuing out of town from Edgware at Junction 4 up to Redbourne at 9 following an earlier accident. There are queues anti-clockwise on the M25 between Clackett Lane Services and Sevenoaks at 5 because of an accident. In fact, those delays are reaching Reigate at Junction 8 now. An accident in Thamesmead means that Harrow Manor Way is shut from Yaunton Way to Easton Way, and on the trains, South Eastern are suspended between Hayes and Lewisham.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Coming up at 8, we'll have an hour of silence marking Labour's failure to provide a phone-in guest. Or we might talk about anti-Semitism.
Ian Dale on LBC.
You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit, so you can keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. Plus, get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and we can quote by video call after work or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
Credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
What is back and lay betting? Backing is a traditional bet, like betting that the action hero will save the day. But on the Betfair exchange, you can lay a bet, which is betting on the same thing not happening and taking money from those who think it won't. Why not give it a try? The Betfair Exchange.
T's and C's apply. Exchange basic package customers pay 2% commission. Other charges may apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you the very best London has to offer? Yes? Then Greyhound Cars, one of South London's oldest and most progressive minicab companies, want to speak to you. Spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. With a very busy day circuit, we have high demand and are now offering great bonuses and mileage rates for the very best drivers. You could pay as low as 10% commission. Start today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Make their Christmas wishes come true. Whether they want to jet off on Barbie's dream plane, run with the storm in Fortnite, or glide along on My Lovely Llama. At littlewoods.com, you'll find all the toys they love, all with inclusive delivery and free returns. Own Christmas. Shop now at littlewoods.com.
This is the Survivalist Network. It's Z-Day plus 17. I haven't slept for days. My zombie neighbour just tried to bite my arm off. Luckily, he couldn't get his infected fingers past the high tensile steel of my Toyota Hilux Invincible. That £199 per month with 0% APR representative is feeling like excellent value now. Get to a Toyota Hilux Invincible. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £9,701 when financed through Access Toyota by 16th of December 2019. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
It's Tom Brake from the Liberal Democrats who's here, and David is on the phone from Bath. David, what's your question, please?
Yes, good evening. The Lib Dems, rightly in my view, are calling for more resources for mental health treatment. Does Mr Brake recognise there's a conflict between that policy and the policy of legalising cannabis for recreational use when cannabis is known to cause mental ill health? And linked to the call you had earlier on cannabis, does Mr Brake recognise that cannabis is teratogenic, like thalidomide, and that it causes birth defects, and the birth defects in legalising state Colorado are 4 times the background birth defects in other states? And how does they justify the legalisation policy in that context as well?
All right, Tom Brake.
Well, thank you, David, for a very, very thoughtful question. I suppose the position we've got at the moment is that cannabis is widely available. You just have to walk down virtually any street. I had a constituent who contacted me recently saying he hated walking around his local streets because he could smell cannabis within about 100 yards of his house. So the fact is that cannabis is readily available, and it is readily available and supplied by criminals. Who are making a lot of money out of it, and they are selling some highly toxic skunk that has the effect that you have just set out. And I guess the question is, do we continue to try to tackle it in a sort of enforcement way, which seems to have completely failed, or do we try another approach, which is the legalization of it, ensuring that what is supplied is controlled in terms of its toxicity, and ensuring that as part of the revenues that are generated from that you can invest that in preventative health programs. I believe that would be more effective, and certainly I hope we could both agree that what we're doing at the moment is clearly not being effective because it is readily available all over the country.
Do you accept that your policy would be bad for mental health?
Well, what I accept is that the present ready supply of skunk and other toxic, very toxic varieties of cannabis is dangerous. I believe that by licensing it and controlling the potency of it, that actually we'll be able to get on top of that problem. But I accept that cannabis is in its strongest form, is something that has mental health implications.
David, do you want to come back?
Well, yes. First of all, the skunk is in the market and dominates the market now because of consumer choice. That's how capitalism works. And secondly, only about 7.5% of the population used cannabis. About 16% of the population used tobacco, and that's down from 48% in 1948. And clearly we've got tobacco down through public disapproval and some use of law. Now, it seems to me totally illogical, and it's one reason I can't support the Lib Dems anymore, in that you want to promote a drug that is known to be addictive, known to cause mental ill health, and as I now say to you, causes teratogenic effects like thalidomide. It's absolutely horrific, birth defects. I mean, even the National Health Service for Wales has a page on about gastroschisis, a dreadful condition with babies born with their bowels hanging out, and it links it to cannabis. And yet the Lib Dems seem absolutely immune to this, and I've spoken to many of them about it. I mean, I've exchanged views with Vince Cable and Norman Lamb and my local candidate, who I won't mention, but I just don't understand your policy. I think you got locked into this policy years ago and you can't get out of it.
Well, the policy is one that the party is comfortable with, but I'm afraid what I haven't heard from you, David, is what your solution is, because the solution we have at present, which is enforcement through the justice system, clearly is not working. If you can walk out of and walk down many streets around the country and smell cannabis, it is clearly not working. So we want to try a different approach, and licensing it could get some of the most potent stuff out of the system.
I know. I hope you're genuine, but I mean, you're aware that in Colorado and in California, the illegal market is still booming. So what you're going to do is normalise the taking of cannabis in a situation where it is currently not normalised, because most people experiment for it and most people give it up. 7.5% is a very small percentage of the population, and it's mostly young people who are most harmed by it. Well, I can't say any more to you. If you won't see a reason, I'm afraid that's it.
All right, you can agree to disagree. David, thank you for the call. Sandra next in Worcester Park. Sandra, hello.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I've got a question for Tom Brake. I wondered what he thought about the principle of downgrading existing major acute hospitals that we currently have by removing all the acute services like A&E, maternity, intensive care, etc., turning them to a little more than district hospitals or nursing homes, when we clearly don't have enough capacity now in A&E and maternity to meet the key targets like the 4-hour wait time in A&E or the ambulance turnaround times.
Tom Brake.
Well, I suppose a bit difficult for me to comment directly, because this is clearly a reference to a hospital in my constituency.
Right, in that case, let's not. Forgive me.
It's more than that, actually.
But I'm happy to give Forgive me, Sandra, just to explain, there are very strict and entirely fair broadcasting rules, which mean that it's impossible. We cannot have one candidate in one constituency talking about a constituency matter. So we just have to be clear about that. Okay,
I'm talking national policy. Okay. I mean, it has been reported that the government advisor on health matters, Sir Bruce Keogh, has put forward the plan to reduce the number of acute hospitals in England, the whole of England, from something like 225 down to the astonishing figure of between 40 and 70 major acute hospitals in the whole country.
All right, if you can please avoid local, I'd be grateful.
Yes, so I guess that there's a general issue here about which I think Sandra is partly referring to, about the level of funding in the NHS, because obviously if we've got more funding, then we've got more staff, we've got more capacity, we've got potentially more hospitals, and that is why as a party we have made this commitment to a 1 pence in the pound income tax increase, which generates £7 billion a year, to invest. And that is the way that we would start to tackle this problem. There are then other issues, sort of associated issues in terms of staffing, and sort of going back to the Brexit issue, we've seen 5,000 nurses from the EU leave in the last couple of years. So that is making things more difficult in terms of ensuring that the NHS is properly resourced. But I mean, I'm not a health professional in terms of what sort of configuration of hospitals we need, but it is true as well, of course, that with things like keyhole surgery, the length of time that people now do spend in hospital beds can be less. the length of time a woman often spends in hospital after having given birth is less. And clearly we need to make sure that we have the right balance of beds and services. And I think as a final, perhaps general point, it is true to say that the UK has, compared to other EU countries, far fewer hospital beds, and maybe we've gone too far in terms of trimming the numbers.
Final quick question from Julian in Caterham. Julian, fire away.
Hi. Hi, Tom. Hi, Eddie. I noticed on your manifesto that you've got a pledge to build 300,000 homes a year. Is that right, Tom?
That's correct, in England.
And I'm just sort of wondering what impact that would have on the Green Belt.
Well, clearly, I mean, in relation to the Green Belt, my personal view is that there's the possibility of exchanging some sort of parts of land with others that are in the Green Belt, so maintaining the sort of area of Green Belt, but using perhaps sites that had previously been contained within the Green Belt area that were perhaps not necessarily of the highest value. Clearly, if we're going to build 300,000 homes, 100,000 of which will be social homes, so affordable homes, there will be an impact on land. And yes, we can do a little bit more in terms of building on land or on sites that were brownfield sites. And many developments around the country where warehousing, for instance, is being taken out and relocated closer to our motorways, and that land is being turned over for residential developments. But yes, there could be an impact, but I think it will be limited, and you could do it with land swaps where you move other land into the Green Belt to try to retain the area of Green Belt.
Julian, thank you so much for the call. Thanks to you, Tom Brake, for being part of LBC's election call, which is back tomorrow at 6. Join me for that. Tom Swarbrick, who did such great work last night here, is with you in his usual slot from 10 tonight. Now, stand by. Next, here is Ian Dale.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Well, I'd like to tell you that at 8 I'll be doing an hour-long phone-in with Labour's Emily Thornberry, but I won't, because not only have Labour pulled her from the programme, but contrary to what they promised, they haven't actually provided a replacement. So we could do a Kay Burley, and I could put the questions to an empty chair, or we could do a phone-in on, well, to pick a random subject, anti-Semitism. Go figure.